Welcome to the Futurist Society podcast, where we delve into the latest advancements in technology, science, and culture. From discussions on the latest breakthroughs in AI, biotechnology, and space exploration, the Futurist Society is your window into all the awesomeness that the future holds. Get ready to be informed and inspired as we consider the positive impact of emerging technologies on humanity. Without further ado, welcome your host, Dr. Awesome.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Futurist Society. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Awesome, and today, as always, we are talking in the present, but talking about the future. Today, I have a really special guest, Daniel Hulme, who is a thought leader in artificial intelligence, how artificial intelligence interacts with business, and as well as many other things, all related to artificial intelligence. So thanks so much for joining us, Daniel. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into AI, and also, what the future holds for AI.
Sure, yeah. Well, thank you for your time. I've been involved in AI for 25 years. My undergraduate was in AI at UCL, which is one of the world's leading academic institutes, where I did my PhD postdocs. I ran a master's program in applied AI for many years. I'm currently entrepreneur in residence for UCL, so I help them spin out deep tech companies. I started a company 16 years ago that's been building AI solutions for some of the biggest companies in the world. I sold that company to WPP, which is the biggest media marketing communication company in the world, 3 years ago, where I continue to be the CEO of Satalia, which is you can think of as being WPP's DeepMind. And I'm also the chief AI officer for WPP, so I coordinate AI across about 120,000 people. I get to invest in AI startups now, and I've just started a company actually to try to solve machine consciousness that maybe we'll talk about later on.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I feel like artificial general intelligence, machine consciousness, that borders on the realm of philosophy. And so it's very ethereal. So I'd love to hear your take on it. I think that's probably where we'll start, because I think most people have this existential threat idea of AI. They're very scared of it. They're worried that it will gain consciousness. So tell us what your thoughts are, because I know that you're an optimist about it.
Yeah, I guess my day job is bringing algorithms or AI into organizations to solve problems, making things more efficient, making things more effective. So for the past 16, 17 years, I've been applying AI to solving problems across supply chains. That's my day job. And doing that in a safe and responsible way is hard. It's something we've been learning to do extremely well over the past decade. Obviously, I do think about the macro impact that these technologies will have on society. And I get about 4 or 5 years ago, I did a TEDx talk that referred to actually 6 singularities. I'm sure that most of the listeners on this call have heard the term singularity. Singularity comes from physics. It's a point in time that we can't see beyond. And it was adopted by the AI community, Ray Kurzweil, to refer to the technological singularity, which is the point in time where we build a brain 1 million times smarter than us. And a good friend of mine coined the term the economic singularity, which is the point in time where we automate the majority of human labor. I realize there's probably an environmental singularity, which is where we either get control or lose control of our ecosystem. And I realized that those 3 words, technological, environmental, and economic, are 3 of the words in PESTLE. Now, I don't know if anybody's written a business plan before that, but they might have come across the PEST analysis or PESTLE analysis. And so I asked myself, is there a PESTLE of singularities? And PESTLE stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So I asked myself, is there a PESTLE of singularities, points in time that we can't see beyond, that AI is accelerating us towards? And I should just kind of emphasize, when we hear the terms associated with a singularity, we often hear them in a negative way. But the point of a singularity is that we don't know what will happen beyond that point. It could be incredibly good for humanity, or it could be incredibly bad. And so maybe it would be helpful just to quickly go through the PESTLE of singularities,
Sure.
And I'll come back to this question of machines and conscious machines. So the political singularity, I think, is something we're facing every day. It's a world where we either know what is true, we can guarantee and prove what is true, or a post-truth world. And AI misinformation bots have challenged our political foundations, and they seem to be continuing to challenge our political foundations. But they're also challenging the fabric of our reality. So, with a few dollars and a little bit of data, you can clone people. You can clone their voice. You can clone their appearance, and that's being used by bad actors to commit fraud and all sorts of stuff. So I actually think that we can solve that post-truth world by creating infrastructure that guarantees or authenticates content. So that's the political singularity. The environmental singularity I've already alluded to, which is where we either gain control or lose control of our environment. And I would say that if we apply algorithms and AI in the right way over the next decade, I think we can get control of our ecosystem. Now, it's a big if. We need to make sure that we're applying these technologies to reduce the carbon it takes to create and disseminate goods, but I think it's possible. The social singularity is not my expertise. It's often referred to as the Methuselarity. It's the point in time where we cure death. AI is advancing medicine rapidly. It's able to monitor ourselves, and eventually it's able to clean ourselves out. And I guess the idea is if you can stay on top of damage, cellular damage, then like a car, that car would never ever break down if you stayed on top of damage. And so I don't know what the world will look like if we realize there are people amongst us that won't have to die, but there are scientists that believe there are people alive today that might not die. The technological singularity we've already talked about, which is the point in time where we become the second most intelligent species on this planet. And I think, broadly, there are two types of superintelligence. And I guess my community felt superintelligence wasn't going to happen for another 30 or 40 years. We think it might now happen in the next 10 or 20 years. And there are, I guess, two types of superintelligence. One type that you might argue is a zombie superintelligence, where you've given it a goal. That goal might be to eradicate cancer. But of course, the easiest way to eradicate cancer is to eradicate humans. Or the classic example is the goal is to manufacture paper clips. And so it uses all of the resources on our planet to manufacture gazillions of paper clips without being aware of the impact of those decisions on itself and the rest of humanity. So there's how do we mitigate the risk of building a zombie superintelligence that ultimately makes bad decisions for the wider good. I don't think necessarily large language models will get us to consciousness. There is a suggestion that you need embodiment. You need to have innate drives, evolutionary drives, let's say, to direct you, and then you need to have this concept of feeling, be able to feel, are the decisions that I'm making in my environment good or bad? That said, there is a new emerging technology that I've been tracking for the past few decades now called neuromorphic computing, which are much more modeled on how our brains work. Our brains actually operate on the power of a light bulb. We learn very quickly. And I think that these neuromorphic technologies will end up being embedded in drones, in physical devices that actually might end up becoming self-aware. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that either, we're not creating mind crime, which is a term that Nick Bostrom coined, where we're essentially putting conscious beings in torturous situations. And so the startup that I've created called Conscium is trying to figure out how do we understand what consciousness is. How do we identify consciousness behavioral markers in machines? How do we align machines with some sort of value system? So it's really facing into how do we build potentially a safe superintelligence over the next decade. And I've been very lucky because I've managed to gather together, I think, the world's leading thinkers advisory board in consciousness. The fifth singularity is a legal singularity, which is around surveillance and persuasion. We know that AI is very, very good at understanding people's behavior. It's potentially very good at influencing people, manipulating people to get them to do things that they should or shouldn't be doing. That's an incredibly powerful position to be in. And we want to mitigate the risk of that technology being used by bad actors to accumulate more wealth and more power. And then I've already mentioned, obviously, the economic singularity, which is the point in time where we automate the majority of human labor. And I've been building AIs for the past 15 years, and people have not lost their jobs. That said, I think the next 10 years, we're going to see a Cambrian explosion of new innovations, new opportunities for people to contribute in ways that we haven't been able to do before. But I think beyond 10 years, nobody knows what they're talking about. But just to kind of give you two extremes, and then I'll shut up. The first extreme is that if companies can free up whole jobs, they probably will. And if that happens very quickly, we might end up with technological unemployment, our economies not being able to rebalance fast enough that might lead to social unrest. And I think it's a real risk. We need to really face into it. And things like UBI and 4-day working weeks could be some of the answers to take the edge off that problem. There is a controversial view, though, that we should be accelerating towards this singularity as fast as possible. If we can automate the friction from the creation and dissemination of goods like food, healthcare, education, transport, energy, we can actually bring the cost of those goods down to zero. So imagine being born into a world where people don't have access to paid work, but everything that they need to survive and thrive as a human being is free, it's abundant. Now, people say to me, Daniel, what would I do if I didn't have a job? A job defines who I am as a human being. I know lots of people who don't have jobs, either they become financially independent or whatever. They're not sitting at home bored and depressed. They typically use their time to contribute to humanity. And I ask all of my audiences this when I engage them, which is, what would you do if you didn't have to do paid work and everything was free, everything was abundant? Most people say, I'll travel, I'll play golf, I'll indulge in my hobbies, I'll spend more time with my family. And if you keep pushing people long enough and hard enough, they say the same thing, which is they want to do something that contributes to humanity. I think we all have an innate desire to contribute to humanity. And I think that if we apply AI in the right way over the next decade, we can free people from those economic constraints to live their true humanity, which is to not just live for themselves, but to live for others.
That's a very high level analysis, and I really appreciate that. You've introduced me to new words like mind crime that I'm going to go back and Google and find out about what the next stage of artificial intelligence has in store for us. That being said, what do you talk to when it comes to your own family members? I'm sure that they're just like my own family. There's a certain amount of people who have a real hesitance towards technology, advancement, progress, and here you are, and you're in the field. You're making this thing that everybody's talking about with very scary terms. What do you say to the layperson that, listen, AI is going to be good for you?
Well, first of all, I think that AI doesn't have intent yet, and human beings have intent, and it's the intent that ultimately drives the use of these technologies. Technology is neither good or bad, but it's the intended use. And so what I try to encourage people is to sort of hold themselves accountable, hold their leadership accountable, hold their governments accountable to making sure that we're using these technologies in the right way. And actually, I think enterprise is the main sort of influential driving force of these technologies, of course. So if you think about the purpose of most enterprises, the purpose of most enterprises is to create some sort of abundance or to do some sort of positive in the world. Now, if AI can help enterprises achieve that purpose very, very quickly, it's a reflective purpose of enterprise that actually could make this world better. So what I say to my friends and family is, first of all, educate yourself about what these technologies are and aren't. And broadly, there are sort of 3 categories of risk associated with AI. The first category of risk are implementing these technologies in the day-to-day in your organizations in a safe, responsible, and ethical way. And that comes down to intent. Am I using these technologies to enrich my employees' experiences, or am I using them to exploit animals or whatever? Intent needs to get scrutinized. And there are various safety questions you need to ask yourself when implementing these technologies. The second category of risk are malicious risks, which is essentially preventing bad actors from creating pathogens and misinformation and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is the role of the government and regulation to make sure that we're preventing bad actors from using these technologies for bad reasons. And then there's the macro risks that I've mentioned, which is the 6 singularities. And I think I do a lot of podcasts and public speaking about AI. And I think, if people are aware of where we are moving as a species over the next 10, 15, 20 years, it's ultimately down to all of us to make good decisions. And we can make better decisions if we educate ourselves. So that's what I encourage my friends and family to do. Educate yourselves. Don't kind of get seduced by the scaremongery that's in the press, on LinkedIn or any other social media channels. Educate yourself, engage with experts, and really also hold yourself account into making sure that you're using these technologies in a way that's positive.
So I am a firm believer in the positive aspect of artificial intelligence, but one thing that I do worry about is that it seems to be concentrated in a few different hands. It's not something that's as distributed when it comes to like a cellular phone, for example. That is something that has been distributed throughout society. And, people in Africa have a cell phone and it's really improved their lives. I feel like when I look at artificial intelligence, it's only a handful of actors that have the capacity, that have the compute, that have the power to do these kind of things. And I wonder, if I'm a small to medium-sized business, like let's say I have, 200 people that work for me, other than a large company, like some of the companies that you've worked for, or you've built AI for, like, some of the Fortune 500 companies, other than those companies, is this going to trickle down to have some benefit for me? Or is it just going to be another scenario, which you kind of alluded to in one of your answers, that it's just going to be giving more power to those that are already powerful?
Well, I think it's really already is trickling down. We're seeing obviously large big tech companies creating these technologies, but what we're also seeing is, ironically, the way that they're competing with each other is by making some of them open source, by trying to fight against an organization that somehow has captured the market and has a very strong commercial model. One way to beat that commercial model is to make these technologies free. And if you make them free, you get access to talent, you get access to data. But ironically, we're seeing an open sourcing and, in some respects, making free probably the most powerful technology that humanity has ever created. Access is a different question, and you made a very good point, which is, if people do have access to mobile phones, at least smartphones that are connected to the internet, and not everybody, unfortunately, on the planet has access to this type of technology. And by the way, if you think about how many phones you go through every couple of years, if those phones were recycled or given to those people that don't have access to smartphones, and if they have access to the internet, then first of all, education becomes free, because pretty much all of the things that you need to learn, certainly technologically, is free on the internet. And second is that people will be able to access these open source models and get them to go and build stuff. You'll be able to describe an application, a technology, or whatever, and these agents, these large language models, will be able to go out there and construct. So actually, I think that it is not just trickling down. It's going to be a waterfall that's going to wash many, many, many people and give them access to these phenomenally powerful technologies. I think we need to give them access to those technologies. And what I hope will happen is the more people that become free, as in free from these economic constraints, their impulse will be to try to make the world better. And making the world better is giving access and democratizing these technologies to allow people to use them for useful things. And the example that I always give is that you might have, for example, old people in old people's homes that are sitting there bored and depressed, and you might have people that in some sort of corner of society that want to access some knowledge base, or they might want to access or learn about a new language or have a conversation. If somebody had access to these technologies, they could describe an app where we would connect those two types of people, those old people with those people that want to learn. And there might not be a commercial model there, but it's giving now people purpose and meaning and a way to contribute to humanity. So this concept is called a protopia. It's not a utopia. I don't think anybody would agree what a utopia is. I think we agree what a dystopia is. But a protopia is essentially a system, a mechanism, a flywheel effect that things are only getting more positive. And I think things will become more positive if we can free people up from these economic constraints that will then use their creativity to then free other people up and enable those people to use their creativity to make the world better.
Yeah, I look forward to that future. I think that, just the amount of drudgery and menial tasks that I do, even in my life on a regular basis, I would love to have an AI assistant that does that for me. Like, let me give you an example, right? So I order the same thing for lunch every single day. And the only thing that varies is the time that I order that lunch, right? So I go on Uber Eats, I order the same chicken salad from Sweet Green. And, I have friends in the AI community. I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So there's like this whole ecosystem around MIT that's doing all this kind of stuff. And they're like, Imran, it would be so easy for you to just make like a simple little bot that does this. But like, I don't know how to do that. I'm a surgeon, right? So I wonder, like, when is it going to trickle down to like just use cases like this where small little benefits of everyday life for people are going to be affected, like, or even like the company, right? Like I employ 200 people. I know there's people that are out there that are doing the same thing, that are doing repetitive tasks like data entry, things like that. I just don't see that happening now, but maybe I'm just naive because I'm not in that space. So tell us a little bit about like the kind of drudgery. When is that kind of going to go away? Because I feel like that's the AI promised land. That's when people are going to sign on and be like, "Oh my God, this stuff is amazing."
Yeah. So I think AI, according to most people, has only been around for the past 2 years. It's been around actually for over 70 years. And so I think we have to remember that the AI as it is now is the dumbest it will ever be. It's only going to get smarter. And I use this very bad analogy that at the moment, these AIs are a little bit like intoxicated graduates. You can ask them questions and they will probably give you an answer. You don't know if that answer is right or wrong, but they do a good job of getting the answer for you. What we're going to see over the next several years is a sort of a graduation of them moving from being intoxicated graduates to next being like a master's level, where they have now the ability to sort of reason, apply the sort of maybe the scientific method to a relatively straightforward problem. In 18 months, 2 years time, we'll have a PhD level. I'm not talking about PhD level knowledge. I'm talking about their PhD level capability. So you'll be able to say, go and solve this complex problem. It's able to then break the problem down into multiple tasks, set up experiments or whatever to then, or hypotheses to then test solve those tasks. Then it'll be a postdoc, and then it'll be a professor. We'll have a professor in our pocket probably by the end of this decade. So right now, it's very good at answering questions in a relatively confident, but sometimes incorrect way. I think reasoning is going to be the next level of intelligence, the next step change. Mathematical reasoning, logical reasoning, which we're probably going to see in the next year. And then I think that we're going to start to see tasks being solved on your machine, your digital machine, in the next 2.5 years. So you'll be able to say, go and order me my usual salad from Sweet Green, or go and send this email to a person. It knows that it needs to go to your email, it needs to find that person, So because it's breaking that problem down into smaller chunks that it's solving for. So I think that we're going to see a step change over the next 6 to 9 months, and then another step change in 18 months.
I hope so. I mean, I hope more importantly that it like trickles down in such a way that it's accessible to individuals or medium-sized businesses, or not just like Fortune 500 companies. Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah. Again, I think we're obviously in WP implementing these technologies to enable people to do their work more efficiently, more effectively, more creatively. And you also use these technologies to improve productivity, writing emails, PowerPoints, all that kind of stuff. So we're starting to now see these technologies being used in organizations that are improving productivity, core productivity, but also solving big problems across supply chains that allow you to create goods more effectively. I'm at the forefront of that. We're really pushing the boundaries in media marketing communications. It might feel in some other types of industries like, for example, what you do, or in industries where you have large-scale logistics problems, etc., where generative AI is not the right technology to solve those problems. It might be, well, why am I not seeing the benefit of these technologies? Because generative AI really only good right now at creating content, imagery, text, soon video, soon sound. Getting them to solve complex problems, getting them to solve optimization problems or real-world problems is still a few years away. So we're seeing some industries that are absolutely embracing this, absolutely being disrupted by these technologies. It'll take some other industries a little bit time to for these technologies to actually start having an impact. But it's absolutely happening. It's not, AI is not a bubble. It's not like it's overhyped. It's going to go away. These technologies are phenomenally powerful. The issue is people not understanding what they're good at solving, and then hiring people that are generative AI experts or applying generative AI to problems that are not suited to generative AI. This is the issue, that people think that AI is generative AI. The fact is that there's a whole load of different types of algorithms out there that can solve problems across organizations that are really not being used.
And that's the issue. I feel like, the idea of not being utilized, when I started in my field, the automation was something that was talked about even when I was training, right? Like, this is something that it's been around there for a while. And I only feel like now we have the capacity to do stuff with automation. So I just personally haven't seen it, and I know that it's going to come. I just was wondering, because you have an inside track on it, if this is something that is out there right now for other fields. I know it's out there to make an email. I know it's out there to answer basic questions, but the Google Assistant, where it makes you an appointment for a barber or something like that. Like, that's some pretty amazing stuff, and I haven't seen that trickle down to me yet. So I don't know if that's something that is a year away, a couple of years away, because I want people to.
It feels like it's probably about 18 months away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope so. I want that to be available for people, because in the same way that when Amazon created Alexa and we had this voice activation, all of a sudden it spread like wildfire, right? And it's something that now it's accepted in society that we are having this in our homes, and it's totally fine. And I want to see a technology where I can, not have to scroll through reams of websites just to get a barber appointment, right? It's something that I think that is a relatively easy task. It just requires a lot of drudgery from a human being, whereas if an AI could do it, that would be great. But
Yeah.
anyway, I really appreciate all of your insight. We're getting close to the end of our time now, and so I wanted to finish up with 3 questions that I ask all my guests. They're much more general questions, and starting out with the first one, which is, I can see that there's a Terminator skull in the background, as well as some other science fiction novelty. What science fiction inspires you? Because you're on the leading edge of a lot of stuff that was written about for decades, and obviously the people are still writing about it. There's all sorts of artificial intelligence themed science fiction that's coming into even thrillers like Mission Impossible or something like that, like near future science fiction. What are some books that people can read that might give them a better version of the future, a utopian vision of version of the future that you're trying to create?
Well, first of all, these are here to remind me of the possible future that we might face. But I'm a Trekkie, so I guess the next generation is a real optimistic view of 100%. The future. Actually, this protopia that I mentioned is often referred to as the Star Trek economy, and I have a quote somewhere from Jean-Luc Picard, which is that wealth and material goods are not what matters in society. It's our contribution to ourselves and making society better that matters. And that's really ultimately the world that I want to create, this Star Trek economy.
I totally agree. I think it's the best utopian vision. And I think that the next generation for me has developed a lot of my moral and ethical sensibilities. So I really appreciate you saying that. So next question, where do you see, from the layperson view, AI being in 10 years? Like, what is it going to look like for, let's say, your mom that is in her 60s or 70s? How is that going to change her life?
Well, I think technology is going to develop dramatically over the next 5 to 10 years. So as I said, we're going to have probably by the end of this decade a professor in our pocket. And then the natural thing now how quickly these technologies are going to be embraced, adopted, implemented in organizations that are then ultimately affecting the world is a different question, right? Because it takes a while to invest in them, to make mistakes, to drive value. So I think that these new neuromorphic technologies are going to spawn the robotic revolution. So we're going to see a lot more robots, agents operating in the physical world. The natural question you would ask a professor is go and build a smarter version of you. And there's a concept called the fast takeoff where we get from being AGI, so like let's say a professor level intelligence, all the way through to super intelligence very, very quickly. I think 10 years is very, very hard to predict. But I certainly know it's going to be a very exciting decade. And it's within our gift to create the future. This is the point. The future has not been created. It's not been determined by the news or by science fiction. It's down to all of us to make good decisions.
So last question. I know artificial intelligence is something that you are very passionate about, and it's a leading technology that's in the newspaper headlines on a regular basis. Aside from artificial intelligence, what technology are you so interested in that you can't get enough of, that you're looking at the newspaper headlines and you can't stop reading it? For me, I would say it's robotics. I just like you were alluding to earlier, I can't wait until we have a humanoid robot that's able to do our dishes and, fold our laundry. I'll be the first in line for a laundry folding robot. But what about you? I mean, you're in this artificial intelligence space. So aside from artificial intelligence, what are you really interested in?
I think there's quite a lot of interesting stuff around longevity. Could we cure death? I have these gadgets that tell me that I need to sleep better and eat better and exercise more, which of course I don't. But there is this interesting kind of singularity that we're facing over maybe the coming decades, which is the idea that we might be able to cure death or prolong life for a significant amount of time. And that will challenge again our social constructs, how we educate ourselves, how we have families and all that kind of stuff. So longevity is the other thing I'm very interested in.
That's cool. So just follow-up question, because you kind of alluded to it. How do you feel about Ray Kurzweil? Because he talks a lot about these singularities. He's been right consistently. He thinks in 2039, we're going to start adding years to our life. That's the point, the takeoff point that you're talking about. Do you think that, especially with artificial intelligence, he's been right, and therefore you're prone to believe that he's right about the other stuff?
Well, he's a very, very smart guy. I think he's going to be reassessing his view of when we might create a singularity, the technological singularity. But, we've got lots of interesting challenges to face as a species before 2039. So even if it was possible to live for a very long time from 2039, between now and 2039, we've got some big challenges to solve for. But again, I think that AI and again people that make the right decisions of applying these technologies, we're gonna solve those problems.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you everybody who are listening out in the world. As always, please like and subscribe. And for those of you guys who listen on a regular basis, I will see you again in the future. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
We appreciate you taking part in today's episode. Take this chance to reimagine a better future by joining a community of futurists who strive for a remarkable world. Be a part of this growing network and contribute to making the world a more positive place. Visit thefuturistsociety.net and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a drop of hopeful futurism.